Recorded Books presents Hidden Summit by Robyn Carr, narrated by Thérèse Plummer.
Chapter 1. Brie Valenzuela finished her large latte and looked into the empty cup. She'd been waiting in this coffee shop for over an hour, trying to look engrossed in her newspaper. But as the time ticked by, she only grew more concerned. The man she was meeting was a witness to a murder and needed a place to hide out. She'd be hooking him up with a place to stay and a job in Virgin River as a favor to one of her colleagues from the Sacramento District Attorney's Office. And when a witness was late in meeting his contact, there was reason to be concerned. Brie wanted to make a phone call to Sacramento, but didn't want to alarm anyone. Instead, she asked the barista for another latte. This witness, now known as Connor Danson, had seen a very well-known, high-profile Sacramento businessman shoot another man. Danson had been taking trash out behind his hardware store when it had happened, and had seen everything. He'd called the police and become the sole witness to the crime. Thanks to his prompt report, they'd found evidence of blood in the man's car, though it had been cleaned, but no weapon. DNA tests had proved the blood belonged to the victim. But shortly after an arrest had been made, Danson's hardware store had burned to the ground, and a threat had been left on his home phone voicemail. "You stayed out of the heat this time, but you won't slip by us again." Clearly the suspect, Regis Mathis, a very distinguished pillar of the community, was connected. Brie had served as an assistant district attorney with Max, officially Ray Maxwell, some years ago. Max was now the DA. He'd suspected some trouble with other witnesses' anonymity and wasn't sure whether the leak was in his office or the federal marshal's unit. A cautious man, he'd set up his own program. He wasn't about to take any chances on losing the only witness to a high-profile murder. Virgin River was an excellent option. It was another 20 minutes before the door opened and a man entered. But her first thought was that he couldn't possibly be her witness. First of all, he was too young to own a prosperous hardware store that catered to custom builders. This guy was no more than 35. And he was, for lack of a more refined description, hot. At about 6'2", he was built like a warhorse, his muscles popping into prominence beneath the white t-shirt under his open leather jacket. Wide shoulders, narrow hips, low-slung jeans, long legs. Although he wore a very unhappy expression at the moment, his face was perfectly symmetrical. Square jaw, straight nose, thick brows, and deep, dark blue eyes. He sported a very handsome, sculptured, and tightly trimmed mustache and goatee. He lifted his chin in her direction. She stood and he walked toward her. She opened her arms. "Give me a hug, Connor, like we're old friends. I'm Brie Valenzuela." He complied a little reluctantly, nearly swallowing her small frame in his embrace. "Nice to meet you," he said quietly. "Sit down. I'll get you a coffee. What's your pleasure?" "Just plain old coffee. Black." "Got it." She went to the counter, ordered, collected the coffee, and returned. "So," she said, "we're about the same age. We could pass for friends from college." "I didn't really go to college," he said. "One semester." "That works. How old are you?" 35. "Aren't you kind of young to own a successful business?" "Used to own," he said, his expression darkening. "It was my father's. He died a dozen years ago, but I was raised in that store. I took over." "I see," she said. "So, we're friends from college. You're up here looking for something a little different after the builder you worked for in Colorado Springs shut down. There's a complete script of your history in this envelope, though I'm sure Max went over all of it with you." He gave a nod.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?